What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Evening Alpha. I'm your host, Todd Wanish, 20-something-year veteran of comics and animation and Web3 and startups and I don't know, a lot of other things too. I am very excited for tonight. I usually get really hyped up with our guests because we really only invite people on the show that we're really into, like people who are legit, projects that we think are top notch, things that we want to bring to you guys. And a couple of months ago during NFT NYC, I was wandering around and something caught my eye, specifically graded comic books. And if you guys are familiar with our project, Adult Fantasy, you know that graded comics and cards have a very special place in our ethos and our own project. And so the graded comics was like a magnet. I just went right to it, especially since it was the only, this was the only booth that not only had graded comics, but were also producing their own comics that touched on crypto. And so I really was intrigued, and I had a great conversation with the guys that founded it, and I'm super excited to bring them to you. In fact, I'll even promote it. I bought the book, Moon Boy. This is one of many, so check it out. Austin from One Blue Land. What's up, brother? How you doing, man?
Hey, Todd. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, I'm very excited for tonight. So first question, only question really. What on earth is One Blue Land?
So I guess let me just backtrack a bit from that and give a little background for myself. So I'm actually a nurse, and I've been a nurse. I've been in the medical field for about 12 years now. And when I hit 30 years old, I realized that I basically knew nothing about finance. We were buried in debt, a lot of credit card debt. And nursing I got a pretty stable paycheck, and yet why am I struggling living day-to-day life? And so I just found this book called the Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. I read it. It's one of my favorite books, and it just put me in a rabbit hole. I started reading a lot of finance books, podcasts, just everything about finance. I would just spend my commute on a train reading and listening. And so, I was like, why didn't I get introduced to any of these topics when I was younger? I used to play back then. I used to play a lot of video games and collect cards, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Dragon Ball Z, all that stuff, right? So I had these idols and these characters that I really looked up to. And so I wanted to, after fast forward a couple of years, I did a lot of investing. I got into stocks, crypto, NFTs, and I did very well. And here I am now. I wanted to create something that will hopefully inspire people to fight for their financial futures. And I'm doing that through comic books. It's a very unique category, topic, genre. I mean, nobody really. It's kind of hard to create the stories and topics about finance, but that's what One Blue Line is about: to hopefully inspire and push people to find financial freedom.
It's really interesting, man. We have something that I teach. I've mentored and advised a number of startups, venture-backed startups, and I have this thing that I talk about often called pilling the dog. And what it means, when pilling the dog basically means, if you have a dog and the dog, let's say, needs to take their heart pill, they need their heart medicine. If you just try to give the dog a pill, the dog is never going to take it. It's just not going to happen. But if you wrap it up in some cheese, right, that dog will eat it in a heartbeat. This is what we used to do for my dog back when I was a kid, right? And the reason is it pilling the dog is essentially giving people what they want while also giving them what they really need. And I think what was really fascinating to me in seeing the way you were delivering this is that it's a little bit of, so it's almost slightly subversive, right? In that you're telling people exactly what the deal is. There's nothing weird or creepy about it. You're saying, hey, you're going to learn about how to do something. But by pushing it through educational content and fun, like this isn't like so in comics, there's a guy named Scott McCloud who's a brilliant illustrator, did a book called Understanding Comics and Making Comics, where it was more of a dissertation style. It was a kind of a cartoony way to explain a very complex subject, which was the comic book medium, right? And instead of going that route, you're actually bringing education through almost like the superhero genre. You're using more of like a mainstream style to push or to educate this concept. And I thought that was really, really kind of a new take, right? Like I gotta think that it's kind of the first thing. Like, how did you come up with saying? I mean, I think it's one thing for someone to say, "Hey, I want to create an education company, or I want to create an educational product, or teach people how to become financially free or make more money, or whatever the thing is that you want to teach people, right?" It's a whole other thing to say, "Hey, we're going to bond it to comic books specifically." So I'm curious, like, how was that decision? Do you have like a background in comics, or what made that decision for you?
Yeah. I mean, finance itself is just so dry and boring. It's presented to us as if, they throw all these lingos, and they make it seem like it's just so complicated, and then the masses generally shy away from it. But yet, it's just so important to be incorporated in our schools. Yet they don't do it. And so, I wanted to create these stories and characters that hopefully people will look up to and learn from. And because finance isn't that complicated. You just need to know a few certain philosophies, few lessons, and we try to do that through these stories, and we try to make it very entertaining as much as possible. I mean, like you said, that title Moon Boy caught your eye, right? So um, there's a lot of great lessons baked into that book itself. That hopefully, somebody picking it up who is completely disinterested about finance, who has nothing, no background, and they have absolutely no interest in finance. Like, by reading that book, I really hope that something gets triggered from them to explore more and read more. We don't necessarily talk about like capex, or like like those like terminologies when you invest, for example, in like real estate, or like debt to income ratios, stuff like that. But we do highlight a lot of very important lessons and principles in the stories, and we try to make it fun. I mean, I kind of wish back then, like, I used to watch a lot of superhero stuff. I'm big into Iron Man, Spider-Man, Avengers, big Dragon Ball Z guy, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh. So those stories and characters, just me growing up with them, I feel like they really affected how I think and how I see the world. There's no other feeling like when, for example, Goku first became Super Saiyan, right? I mean, I'm sure a lot
Right.
of people could relate to that. So I want to create those kind of moments into these stories that hopefully people will see as a goal, or as a inspiration when they're reading it. Because once you go into that finance rabbit hole and you realize how important it is, and once you realize how actually it's not that complicated, I feel like you could really take charge of your life.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned how you started out about not knowing anything about finance, and then something, you find something that kind of clicks with you, and for you it was Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then once you start on your own journey, and you stumble along the way, and then finally you have a little bit of success, the reaction is always like, well, why didn't I learn this sooner? Why isn't this taught? Like, why isn't this every school should have this stuff? And my journey was very similar. I went to art school, and I mean, I was in art school. I went to a magnet high school, so I had a fine art major in high school, and then I had 4 years of art training in high school. It was pretty deep, and then I did college, and I got my MFA, my Master of Fine Arts, and so I had another 4 years of art college. And by that point, I was like, there's no way I'm getting my master's because I got my BFA, not my MFA. I got, I had no desire to get my master's because I was like, what's another 2 years going to do? I've had 8 years of training. And even before that, I was drawing stuff. So, but what was interesting is when I started my career, there was no help with it. No one, you graduated and they're like, peace out. You hit all your points. You got your portfolio. Good luck, kid. There was no training. There was no like guidance of how to get a job or what to do or how to behave or anything. And so I went balls out basically. That I could tell that story. It's kind of interesting, but long story short, I got that first job in animation at Cartoon Network at a studio, and I just camped out. Like I just never left. Literally, I would sleep there. And fortunately, there was enough work there for me to, not be a complete hobo in their in their lobby while I was working on stuff. But it's so interesting. Like as I started my own company and started my own studio and started my own businesses, it was all from the perspective of an artist because no one had taught me anything about business. There was no background in it. It was all art all the time, all craft. And so I failed nonstop I still was able to pay the bills, right? But I would, you grind, 100, 120 hours a week and you're like, why am I not moving? Why is the business not growing? What's happening? And it took years of trial and error, years of screwing up and not knowing what to do. And for me, I started reaching out to mentors where I literally shut my company, one of my studios down, the animation studio, because of the opportunity to work under like work at Marvel, which led to me having the opportunity to work with Stan Lee, working at a studio, the Jeff Koons studio, who's like the #1 artist since Andy Warhol. Like those were things that I couldn't ignore and opportunities I couldn't turn down. Right. And so it was kind of being in the inside and seeing how that stuff worked. And then it was actually marketing, like marketers, like Rich Dad Poor Dad was cool. And I read that book, but it didn't really hit. For me, it was a guy named Russell Brunson, who, when I read his book, I think his first book was like .com Secrets or something. And it was the first time where I realized that marketing was just a different way to tell a story. It was just storytelling. And in fact, this ties into One Blue Land and what you're doing is the way that they were talking about, the way that his book and his courses and his trainings were talking about marketing and digital marketing specifically, were always accompanied with like super crude stick figures, right? Like little stick figure drawings that would show the principle. And it was done crudely on purpose to show how simple it was. It's so easy. I can show it to you with a stick figure and it's super clear. And for whatever reason, for me, it was like the biggest aha moment I ever had where I was like, I finally get it. It's just marketing is a comic that is divided up into web pages and storytelling and advertising. You're just telling the story of your product, right? And I was like, oh crap. And that changed everything for me. Everything. That was years ago now, but and I had the same kind of realization that you had, which is like, why isn't this taught in schools? So I guess that's my question to you. Like, why do you think this stuff isn't taught in schools, man?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to be, very blunt about it, I feel like just the way society's built, there's a lot of like old school mentality that just needs to evolve. But I feel like it's just too slow. And essentially, this school system, I think it's built right now and modeled to create workers. Don't get me wrong, I mean, you definitely need certain positions, right? Like you definitely need nurses, you definitely need hospitals, right? And accountants and all that stuff. But at the same time, they don't really talk about entrepreneurship at all. They don't really talk about the like other methods you can sustain a living out of. So then I feel like a lot of people then it's great if you love your job, but then a lot of people also don't like their jobs. And so what do? Like they end up just using their what they're passionate about. They don't end up pursuing it because they feel like they can't use it to make money, right? But I'm a big fan of something called the ikigai. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's like a Japanese diagram model where in order to live a meaningful life, you have to meet four things: do something that you love, do something that you can make money out of, do something that helps society, and do something that the world needs. Right. Um, I actually put that in my website. Let me see if I could bring that up. Hold on one second. It's right here because I really love this diagram.
Yeah, for sure. Pull it up.
Let me see if I could. Oh, actually, yeah. So, can you see it?
No,
Sorry,
no.
dude.
You have to hit the share button inside of the at the bottom of the screen inside of StreamYard. I could pull it up too. I
Oh,
actually.
there you go. I got it.
Yeah, you got it.
Let me know. Let me know if this works.
Sure. Pull it up.
Because I feel like this diagram, this is one of the things that changed my perspective about the life and just what I'm doing every day. And I feel like a lot of people could hopefully get a lot of value out of it.
Yeah, I don't see it in the green room.
Oh,
If you
I'm
send me,
sorry.
no worries. So if you here for everybody. So your website is oneblueland.com. Where
Yeah,
on the
just type oneblueland.com/principles.
oneblueland.com/principles. Bird up. All right, let's do this. Here, I'll show. I'll share it for you. There you go. Now you got it. All right.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
Yep.
I love it. Sorry about that. A
No,
little
no worries,
technical.
of course. No, it's fine. So for those that might be listening to the audio and not watching the video, so it's basically a Venn diagram with Ikigai in the center, right? It's four circles that interact or interlock.
Yeah, so so Ikigai is right in the middle, and if you're able to find something that you love, you're good at, that the world needs, and that you can get paid for at the same time, that's basically how you live this purposeful, happy life. But I feel like going back to the school system, right? I feel like a lot of people just end up being trained and educated on what the world needs and not necessarily what you love doing. So then, that missing ingredient is how people get burned. I think because they end up living this life until they grow up, and then they end up retiring in their when they hit 65. Yet they still have this missing piece in their life that they're not fulfilled with. Right? They did not pursue that passion, and so I feel like people miss out all their years just working and working and working, and never really realizing that they could have done something different. And it just makes me feel very sad that that that's how society is built for the masses. I think, and but I think it's changing now. Though I really think it's changing because the internet, the podcast, this podcast, right? The our chat right now. There's just a lot of great influencers out there, right? The role models that people could listen to, and they talk about these stuff. I really feel like it's changing quite rapidly just over the past couple of years.
I do too. I think the positive and negative that I see, and I think we share a lot of the same insight or thoughts on education or traditional education. I could tee off on traditional education for quite a while. I think the positive is, to your point, that more and more people are going to be interested in educational products or learning how to be independent or learning how to be entrepreneurial or getting into crypto, or they're going to look for people will always look for ways to improve their life, and they're going to be looking at it more and more as we move forward, because within the last 5 years, let alone the last 10, we've completely shifted the way that we as a culture work, create everything, right? I mean, what was it, 5 years ago everyone went into work, and now you can't even think about it. Like, now everyone is like kind of pissed off if they have to go back to work, right? Like, that's how fast it changes. You know, we've got technology like Zoom and this and that, and we can do calls and we can have conferences. We can pretty much do everything with software virtually. Um, and just like the other larger, larger overarching differences, like my grandfather's generation and even my parents' generation, like they graduated school or what have you, and then worked for one company, and that was the only company they worked for their entire lives. They put their 40 or 30, 40, 50 years in, got that watch, and bounced with a pension or whatever. Our generation has no chance of that whatsoever. Like, we're going to have dozens of jobs, if not many, many more than that, during our career. And so as that fractures further, as it, right now it's working many, many jobs domestically. And I think as we move forward, it'll be many, many jobs internationally. It might be mostly domestic, but the owning, the owner stake in the company may be overseas, right? I mean, half the people don't even know who owns their companies that they work for, right? Who's on the board and who are the investors? Like, do you really know? Like, it's pretty much an international thing anyway. So I think as we move forward and it starts to get more fractured and more fractured, more fractured, I'm hopeful in a positive way that it forces people to be entrepreneurial. You have to be entrepreneurial. One of the reasons people go into crypto I think and start kind of testing the waters in there is because they feel the need that they have to do something more than what they're doing in their life, right? Whether it's an investment opportunity, or whether it's collecting something, whether it's just looking at your local currency in whatever country you're living in, and thinking that it's going in the wrong direction. So that's a positive. The negative, of course, and I think to what you're talking about with One Blue Land, is that when they come, it's not like there's a guidebook. It's very, very difficult to create something that's a real product or a real tool that can point somebody in the right direction. It's very difficult to do. And there's a lot of people out there. I wouldn't say they're I've been in the marketing space for a long time, digital marketing. And fortunately, I can honestly say most people are good people, right? You do happen to have though that level of creator that buys a course on how to make courses so that they can make a course to sell money selling a course on how to make courses, right? And so it's like anything. You always have actors that are going to kind of give the area kind of like a either not necessarily bad name, but where the consumer is not going to necessarily get the education that they need to make a valued decision. And so, like, what have you found bringing this to the public? Like, what's the reaction been? And what I mean by that is like not just like, oh, it's been great, people really dig it. Like, you actually did something really interesting. Was you actually brought a comic on crypto to an NFT conference, right? So
Yeah.
I'm really curious, like what the actual market was saying about the product. Like, what did you learn?
Yeah, I mean, let me just pull that up here. I mean, when they see the covers, right? It's pretty eye catching, and like you said, it caught your eye, right? Seeing these stuff graded. I love
Sure.
slabs. I love CGC, PSA, right? I love anything graded. I'm a big collector myself, but um, when they saw this, people were curious. Like, there's really no other topic about finance when it comes to comic books. It's a whole genre by itself. Um, and it was for NFT NYC. It's versus coming to Comic Cons. Um, I didn't have to do as much education when I was at NFT NYC because people there already are big in NFTs, crypto, right? But I did attend with my buddies the Comic Cons for that population demographics. There was more curiosity and the education that we were doing because nobody really, a good amount of them haven't really heard of what NFTs are. There's still a lot of, uh, I guess, bad views about Bitcoin, crypto. There's still a lot of misinformation. So there was a lot of education happening on those Comic Cons. But people loved the covers. They were curious, and they were asking about the collectivity of it. What's this about? The stories. Um, and I'm going on a tangent here, but the stories are all available online. It's free to read for everybody. So just because you're in the booth talking to us, and you don't purchase one, that's totally fine. You can see the whole thing online. You can read all the stories and the characters on the website. Um, and sorry, well, was there anything else to
No,
that?
that was good. I mean, I guess I'm like, well, let me ask you this: what cons did you go to?
I went to the Big Apple Comic Con and
Mhm.
the Brooklyn Comic Con. Right now, we're doing mostly because I'm in New York. I'm in the East Coast, so doing more local stuff. In the future, we do hope to do more in the United States, domestic, right? And hopefully, eventually, we'll do international. But that's what's great about having these podcasts, right? And the internet, like you could reach anybody, anywhere, anytime, any place. So we also do want to do a lot of these just casual chats with other creators.
So in fact, before my next question, let's jump to chat really quick and just say hello to some people that came here.
Yep.
What's up, Willie D? LFG, good people. How you doing, brother? Dusty, what's up? LFG, KG, what's up? Welcome, sir. Hey, people. Massive, what's up? Let's duck and go. Massive with those ducks. Massive, that duck project. I don't know. I don't know if I'm allowed to say anything about it. It's freaking awesome. Go check out Massive's project. It's a Big Top Midway. Natasha, what's up, Natasha? How you doing? One Blue Land saying hello to people. KG, what's up, Carrots? How you doing? Time for evening alpha. Natasha says, exactly. Same thing happened when I graduated from acting school. It was like, peace out. Yeah, like people don't, these programs, they get their cash and they kind of bounce you out, and there's not a lot of support or help. And when I was younger, I thought it was a lot of it was that I thought, oh well, that old adage, those that can do, those that can't teach, right? That's kind of that old adage. And then you meet people that have done things that also teach, but still the value is can kind of be limited and not necessarily practical. And then I realized that it takes a very specific skill set. That the people that can actually like do something and teach it are the ones actually making products to sell it, because they can make more for themselves and build a bigger business for themselves than they can if they were actually in one location teaching, right? Why, decentralize yourself and sell a digital course as opposed to being in one location. And Natasha says that she loves Ikigai for sure. Yeah. So how in the structure of your book, so you have like a series of books, like you've got Captain Bitcoin, like, how do you tie in the education across multiple issues?
So yeah, if you go to that page where I pulled up Ikigai earlier, if whoever's watching this podcast, this chat, listening to it, what One Blue Land is about, what's the core principles of One Blue Land, it's built into this website right here. All of the lessons, all of the principles built into the comic books are in this one page. For example, our number one principle is health and time are your two greatest assets. And basically, what we try to do is these lessons, these principles, we try to create the scenarios and the scenes in the comics, and we try to make it entertaining through the characters. Our number one character right now, our very first issue was Captain Bitcoin. It had to be crypto related because I'm a big crypto guy. I know I love stocks, real estate, all that stuff, but crypto really is one of the things that inspired me very much to even do all these things because it's the future. I mean, not financial advice, nothing. Everything I'm saying, everything in these books are for entertainment purposes only. But as a disclaimer, but going back to your question, our very first issue is related to there's a lot of crypto references. It's called the Satoshi series. I'm going to try to pull it up right here. Right there. So our very first issue is a series. It's called the Satoshi series, and it's a 8 issues. We're currently working on the final issue right now. We haven't released the 5 of them yet. We've only released issues 1, 2, and 3. So the way we did it was issue number 1 is Captain Bitcoin. Issue number 2 is Moon Rising. It's a different set of characters, but they're all in the same storyline. Issue number 3 is Sir Whale. They're all here.
Oh, interesting. Got it.
Yeah, but they're all
so they're not necessarily different series. You're just kind of releasing different titles under the same banner, basically.
Yeah, this is for our first project, like big project. This is called.
Got it.
This is the Satoshi series. That book that you got from NFT NYC, Moon Boy.
Mm-hmm.
So that one actually was a standalone story. It's a completely separate world. It has, I mean, the only crypto reference it has really is the title itself, Moon Boy. But if you read the whole story, it's like 76 pages, graphic novel, and there's really nothing about crypto there. I just like we just like the name Moon Boy. And I love that story. It's one of my favorite stories too.
What's been your biggest challenge with launching this stuff? Because it's not having published books, print, it's not exactly simple. And I think coming from a comics background, I can tell people out there listening and watching, if you've ever picked up a comic book, it looks really easy, right? It's like, oh, it's a couple pages, 20 pages, and it's got the panels and the color and the text. It is not simple to put one of these things together. And when you do one book, you start to really appreciate these larger companies like the Marvels and the DCs that have done it month over month for decades. So what's been your biggest challenge, either in regards to the comic or to crypto or to the industry at large? Like what's been your biggest barrier so far, man?
Yeah, I could name a few of them. Excuse me. One of a big challenge is just creating, I guess, metaphors and scenarios about finance and try to make it fun. I mean, I think we do a pretty good job at it, but it's not necessarily easy. Like, how do you explain these topics through these characters, right? Like, you have to be very very creative and really really think about it. The other thing is. I didn't come from a comic book background or like storytelling background. Like I said, I'm in healthcare. I mean, it's a completely different world right there. But just the fact that I work, I'm 30 years old, right? I'm 33 years old now. But the fact that I did learn a lot of life skills, I guess you could say, and I kind of threw everything I learned up to this point into the comics also. As far as being a nurse, reading a lot about finance, reading a lot about just these podcasts in general. Other challenges I would say is just the coordination. But what I do is I work with a lot of like freelancers, but then I end up working with the same people every time. You could see all their names here, and we're just in different time schedules.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of great people in Brazil, Philippines, Europe.
So it's kind of the management side.
Yeah, pretty much. And I'm there to like chat with everybody online and just putting something very cool together. So that's a whole nother world out there.
So somebody reads one of your books. Let's say they read Boy, since we got it pulled up.
Mhm.
And it gets them interested. Like what other things would you recommend? Would you recommend, like, assuming that this is sort of like an early jumping on point for people who are trying to make a difference in their life, right? Because I do think I know for a fact that comics have the power to completely change your life. I mean, it did for me, right? Like, it completely changed the direction of I don't even know who I would be, let alone what I'd be doing without comics and animation. And so it certainly it's an incredibly powerful medium. So with that said, like, if somebody was reading this book or any of your books, would you point them to something like a Rich Dad Poor Dad next, or where would this, like, assuming this is the first step, what would be the next step for somebody on their journey? Like, if this inspired them to go forward, like, where would you point them to?
Yeah, actually, even there's a scene in Captain Bitcoin, that very first issue, where once that fire has been triggered, um, he ended up going online and just going through books, podcasts, YouTube, and he did a lot of research on finance in general, and it really changed his life. I mean, I don't want to spoil too much on the stories, but the next step would definitely be like, just doing your own research, because you can't exactly like, you don't really know what you want to invest in. You don't really know what you want to divert to, right, and specialize in, until you learn about it. So the next step would be just picking up a Rich Dad Poor Dad book, Think and Grow Rich, right, by Napoleon Hill, or just listening to a lot of these great podcasts online on YouTube, and just immersing yourself out there, because there's a lot of there's a lot of information out there. You really got to be careful on who you listen to, and who you're getting quote unquote advice from, including me, of course. um, but I really feel like people should listen and find, like you said before, like, find a mentor or somebody that they look up to, and just really learn from them. You don't necessarily need to, like, in my opinion, this is just my opinion. You don't necessarily need to, like, meet the mentor in person. They could just be like an online role model, for example. Um,
Mhm.
but if you can get in touch with them, that'll be great. But in my opinion, you don't need to, because a lot of content and a lot of the stuff and less.
Oh, did we drop? Austin, you froze. We were doing so well.
What about now?
Oh, there you go.
Okay,
You're
cool.
back.
I hope people heard that. I was just saying that a lot of stuff are already free online. Like, you don't really need to pay, like, $30,000, $10,000 to hang out with a mentor. I mean, sure, it's great, but I really feel like a lot of stuff and lessons out there are already free online. You don't, you just
Yeah.
have to look for it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to you're right. There is so much stuff out there um, for people to check out. I do think at the end of the day, you have to do a lot of research, and you have to really try a lot of things in order for you to find a style that you like. Because one person's uh, you know garbage tier coach is another person's, like, savior or whatever, or leader, I should say, right? Someone that I like, for instance, that made a difference in my life, or unlocked something that I was always having trouble with. Somebody else could come along and be like, oh man, that person's completely useless. Like, they're not teaching anything of value. I know all this stuff, or whatever it is. Like, everyone has their own entry point, and everyone has their own specific style, and everybody has their own challenge, right? Like, everyone has the different things. Everybody's business is always on fire, right? And so, but it's what's on fire that's different for everybody, right? Like, some people are having problems with iteration or ideation or product market fit, or or advertising or funnel building or lead generation or understanding what, what their how to improve their click-through rate. Or there's so many aspects of a business that can be just like lit on fire, that it's really incumbent upon you as a business owner or as an entrepreneur or as somebody that wants to start a business to investigate and find the mentor or find the coach or find the program that speaks to you in a way where you finally crack it. Like my litmus test is, if you can, to your point, Austin, it's like if I find somebody's free stuff and I'm able to implement it, because that's kind of the point. Even the free stuff should be valuable enough for you to implement. If I find somebody and I look at their free stuff and I implement it and it works and I'm like, oh, I totally got that. That actually solved a problem line. Then I'm certainly going to be checking out more of that person's work because it actually already provided value to me. Does that make sense? It already hit me in the spot that it already solved one problem, and now it's going to help me hopefully solve more problems. Carrot says, is there an index fund superhero? I'll leave that to Austin. I'm guessing by his laugh that the answer is not yet.
Well, maybe one day, right? I mean, there's a lot of IP being created out there, and you never know. Who knows? I mean, NFT, like you never really thought that NFTs would, be like this whole new asset class, right?
Yeah.
Collectibles, trading cards. Like who knew that, X comic book would sell for like millions of dollars, right? Like we never really know. But that's why, going back to what you said before, like I think people just have to go out there, make mistakes, and just learn from it. Like there's really no blueprint that you can necessarily follow. I feel like you just have to just take action like every day and just keep adapting to whatever life throws at you. And yeah, I mean, I'm also not saying that the entrepreneurship is like, the way to go, right? I mean, there's other ways to find your own, financial freedom. There's like, there's people perfectly happy with their jobs, right? There's the investing route. Like you don't even have to do anything with business. You could just invest in X, right? Stocks, real estate, whatever, right? Whatever fires you up. I think that's one thing that I feel like it's important.
That's a great point.
You should really dig deep in something that fires you up or something that you're genuinely interested in, because you're not going to get burned out as fast, I guess, or you'll never really be burned out. Like for me, I love crypto, I love NFTs, love comics, love superheroes, and I mean, no matter what life throws at you, I feel like this is always something that's I'm gonna be interested in. I just like to sit back and just look at these characters, these stories.
Has this made you a comic book lifer now? Are you addicted to producing comics now, or?
Yeah, I went very heavy actually.
You went very heavy, man. Most people launch with like one book or two books. You launched a whole freaking company around it, and yeah, you actually published like a bunch of them. So that's why I'm asking. It's like you're either a glutton for punishment or you really, really enjoy it. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm very proud that CGC graded these books. I really feel like I'm trying to create something that's fun, entertaining, and at the same time, collectible. Because when these books that we were creating, the print run is only like 2,100. So
was it 2,100 each or total?
Per issue.
Per issue, yeah.
Yeah. So that's not a very high amount. And out of that 100, there's another hierarchy on it. There's 100 first editions and 2,000 limited editions. So, like I said, I'm a big back then I used to collect Pokemon cards. I love first editions, and that's why I wanted to create like first edition comic books also. So it's just the very first print. So, for example, right now, there's only 100 copies of this Captain Bitcoin first edition right here that you're seeing on the screen.
Mhm.
And out of the 100 copies, like how many of them are going to be graded 9.8? I mean, I'm hoping when people get the physical version, they won't maybe open it. And I want people.
Oh yeah,
I want people to grade these things.
What do they call it? Like a graded a slab. What do they call it? A slab snuff film where they just like crack it open.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, man, nobody cracks them open. Very few people dig it, man. They don't want to ruin the book.
Oh yeah.
And it is a beautiful object once you have it slabbed. I mean, again, I'm super partial to slabbed books and grading because we kind of invented it for NFTs. So I'm really like, anytime I see anything graded, I gravitate towards it. It's just a beautiful object, and they're beautiful books. So like, what's next for you guys? Are you like, have you thought of, or have you started to tie this into NFT sales, like NFT minting and in exchange for physicals, or what's next for you guys? What's coming up?
Yeah, I mean, so for us, we don't necessarily have like, I mean, I don't want to discredit what other people are doing. I feel like people are they're doing their thing, and it works for that company, right? But for us, we never really had any launch dates necessarily. We don't do whitelist. We don't do any of the other stuff. We're just focused on creating stories and IP from the ground up. So I didn't want to create like characters. I wanted to create the stories first and then the characters. Because
that's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, like Captain Bitcoin, like, I mean, the name Bitcoin is iconic, right? But like, what's Captain Bitcoin? Like, who is Captain Bitcoin? Who's that character? Who's that gentleman that's that's suspended midair fighting this weird looking time stealer, right? But right now, like I said, we're focused on creating the comics. So we're up to issue number 8 of 8 of the Satoshi series. So we're almost done. We've only released 3 out of 8 of them, and we're aiming to release like 1 issue per quarter. So I'm hoping by 2023, late 2023, we would have released or early 2024 ish. We're gonna release all our Satoshi series, but like I said before, I went very heavy into the comics. So simultaneously, we're working on other standalone issues like Moon Boy that are like 80 plus pages. And it's just a one and done story. Like, we're not going to create other issues on that. Like Moon Boy, that he's already done.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're working on graphic novels. We're working on like, if you look here, sorry, I'm going to scroll down. Like, we're working on animation of the comics itself. We're doing like narrated and graphics motions for the comics. It's pretty cool. If you don't really need to read the book, you could just watch it on YouTube. That's what's cool about this, I thought.
That's pretty awesome. Like, so where are you selling these? Are you selling these more like right now exclusively at cons, or is it in stores? Is it online? Like, how are you getting these into people's hands?
Oh yeah, so right now, usually people found us. I mean, we're not really going too heavy yet. Like, that's one thing we have to work on is our social media presence, right? So mostly people find us in Instagram, Twitter. We did the Decentraland events, and they end up finding our website, and from the website there's a oneblueland.shop, and if you buy the physical, we'll ship it to you internationally, and we will transfer you the NFT to whatever Ethereum address you give us. You could also do it the other way in OpenSea, where you could purchase the NFT, and then there's an unlockable code in the NFT itself that you could plug in our Shopify website, and we'll ship you the physical comic book.
Oh no, that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it is tied to an NFT, and if you actually went ahead and hopped on OpenSea, bought the book, or got the NFT off of OpenSea, you could unlock it through like your Shopify store.
Yeah, so it's like a 1-to-1 ratio. We really wanted to tie physical with the digital, because because as a collector, I want to hold something and I want to display it
Yeah.
physically and digitally. Um, so I thought that's very cool. I want to check out people's MetaMask, their wallets, and I also want to, I want to be able to see it display the gallery virtually and in person. I think it catches a lot of attention and eye.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, nothing beats physical or like. I always make fun of the term "digital" because I think it's just it's just the worst term ever, and it's we might as well call it "defizzy" or something. Like this is ridiculous. But yeah, I do like the combination of being able to own the digital collectible and have the ability to unlock a physical, whether it's a one-to-one or whether it's like collected editions. Or I think the sky's the limit with those types of combinations, right? And especially since you've got ideas for like slabbing and stuff like that. I mean, I think it opens up a huge opportunity and really interesting. I think it opens a really interesting corner of the market because what's fascinating is when I came to your booth and NFT NYC, um, uh, one there were people around it, right? It was fascinating. It surprised me, to be straight up, because I was not expecting like comics to show up at NFT NYC. So I was like all over it. I was super in. I was like, oh, I'm going over. I'm checking this out. But then other people were coming over, right? And what I found fascinating is the people that I talked to around the booth, um, they it, the conversation, the combination of having a comic also that tied into crypto meant that the conversations I was able to have with people were pretty vast, right? Because you're not just talking about the comic. Like in comics, you can talk about the characters, you're talking about the artist, you're talking about the run, you're talking about the writer, maybe even the publisher. It's a community, right? So there's a lot of aspects from a comic book that you can actually have a communication, have a discussion about, right? Um, with around your booth, when I was talking to people, uh, we started talking about it's like it started talking about like the comic, and then talking about NFTs and crypto because we were at an NFT conference, and then back to comics, and then started talking about like Star Trek and stuff. Like it was it was really interesting how the joining of these two you would think are these completely different things, crypto and comics. Print, of all things, print a printed comic book, which is like old school printing press, talking about crypto, which is like cutting edge, basically. Like how these two, what you would think would be diametrically opposed things, was able to open up a conversation between people who didn't know each other, and still have a really good conversation just all around. Like I was having a great time.
Yeah, no, I mean that's what's super cool about this. Like, like merging the two worlds together. Like you're gonna strike pretty interesting conversations out there, and it's very relatable. I mean, but not just like I said before, not just in NFT NYC, but when I present in Comic Cons, right? Those exhibitions and Comic Cons and those other non NFT, non crypto related events. It's also like a way to onboard other people who don't know about NFTs, who don't know about the crypto. It's also a way to like bring them to the community, and it's really an educational opportunity that I think will hopefully help people and strike that interest into navigating this potentially complicated space, right?
Mhm.
Because like how do you read about these stuff without I mean, don't get me wrong, like how do you read about these stuff without getting bored necessarily? Because there's some topics out there that's just not palatable for people. So but now when you're bringing them into these images, these comics, these stories, I feel like now this like a I feel like people will gravitate more towards that, and they could consume that content a lot easier, right? Um, but yeah, like I don't know, it was fun. I had such a great time at NFT NYC. I remember that first day. It was so busy, man. I feel like I mean, I came in there with a suitcase full of these comics. I didn't really expect anything,
Right.
but I was very happy that when I went home that day, it was empty. So I had such a hard time carrying it. I took a taxi to that hotel, right? And it was just so heavy because I was carrying all these graded books. I was carrying all these books.
Right.
But I was just so happy that people loved it, and people really genuinely appreciated, what we were doing, and they enjoyed the characters. I had a great time.
That's the best.
So
That's the
worth it.
best feeling in the world, man. That's the best feeling in the world. Like people picking up your book and having you sign it, or just like buying it, enjoying it, and going, like there's nothing like it. It's one of the things that I love about comics the most, honestly, is like speaking from my own personal experience, having booths at New York Comic Con and other cons for a long time. Um, when someone picks up one of your books, uh, and it's just instant joy. You know what I mean? And it's almost like a little bit of your own creative propaganda, right? It's your art style or your story, or it's a little piece of you. You put so much. It takes so much effort and energy and thought to make these things that really just look like some folded sheets of paper, right? And once that's out in the world and you see people and they come and they're like, they kind of light up and they're like, oh my God, this is awesome. And you have that conversation of like, well, what is this? Tell me about this book. And you're telling them the idea and you tell them the concept, and they pick it up and they take it home. That comes back, several months later, and they're showing it to you on a live stream like I am right now. Like it's a real amazing experience. You know what I mean? And it actually has a very similar thing to me. It actually ties into NFTs and digital collectibles in a huge way, and the blockchain, because while not immutable, collectibles are slowly becoming that way, right? Like this is going to be in my collection for 30 years, right? Like it just is. Like that's just that. I mean, half these books behind me I've had since I was a teenager, right? We don't get rid of these things, we collect them, right? And then you take it a step further with what you're showing on screen, which is slabbed comics. Those things are going to be around for even longer, right? Because there's no degradation. They're not going to, I mean, honestly, half these things you could dump into a flood and they would be perfectly fine, right? I mean, that they're meant to be like permanent. They're sealed. They're meant to be permanently encased, right? And so you're creating an artifact, and I find it very fascinating how the whole like in IRL, the collectible market has been moving towards this permanence, or this idea of as permanent as a physical object can be, right? I mean, nothing is permanent completely, but it's getting there. And then all of a sudden you have this bridge of digital collectibles or NFTs or whatever, and all of a sudden that trend just keeps going, right? Like now I'm gonna have, I've got the Moon Boy comic, and I'm gonna have that, for a very long time. And then if I have the NFT, I'm also going to have that in my ledger for a very long time. And so it's these little pieces of you that start to spread out into the universe and start to touch people in ways that you'll never know, right? Like, but just through the quality and the work that you put out there and the effort that you put forth, that you are changing people's lives, you are touching people's lives, and that the work you do does matter to other people, right? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, and I was gonna say also, going back to that Moon Boy that you carried there, right? I feel like when you're collecting something, you should, I mean, not advice, but it's nice to buy three of them, right? You keep one sealed, you open one, and then you sell one,
Yeah.
right? Because
This is, I mean, it sounds like you're pitching, but you're actually, it's interesting you say that, because like when we were growing up, I mean, that's what we used to do, right? Like we would go and you would buy two, right? So you'd flip through the stack on the rack, and you flip through it and you'd look for the perfect edges, and we would look for the perfect edge, make sure, find the most mint copy that you could possibly find, and then pull those two, and you'd have a reader copy and a copy you never touch, right?
yeah, exactly. Right? I mean, that's nice. You keep one sealed forever, You open one to enjoy it, and then the third one you could sell it, right? When it pops. So I think three is a
Absolutely.
magic number for
I
collectors.
think so too. I think it's pretty good. Natasha says, really love the education aspect, and they look amazing. They do. They're really cool books. Mastiff says, great alpha tonight, guys. Absolutely. Thank you, Mastiff. I appreciate you as always, man. KG says, buy 3. Definitely. That's good advice. So with that, where can people buy 3? Like, where should we send them? How do they get in touch with One Blue Land? Where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, I mean, it's just oneblueland.com. And the store is right there. It's on the top. So when you click it, it takes you to our Shopify website, oneblueland.shop. You could also go the other way, where you can just go to OpenSea, and if you just type One Blue Land, we'll show up there. But let me just click this link in the bottom right here. So you could buy the physical first, and then we'll give you the NFT through whatever address you provide us. If we'll when you email it to us, when you email us proof that you purchased it, we just need a screenshot of what you purchased on physically, right? And if you buy the NFT on OpenSea, you could just open the unlockable code that's built within the NFT, and you can use that code to claim the copy in the main website right here. But yeah, the instructions are all here. It's if you click it, it's literally right here in the website.
That's awesome. Awesome, man. So everybody go check out oneblueland.com. It's a really clean website. Interface is super obvious. Like it's really well done. So everybody can go over there, and I think we got a pretty smart audience. They should be able to figure it out. So oneblueland.com. Austin, man, thank you so much. I appreciate it so much, man. This is great.
No, thank you for having me. I mean, just I wish I spoke to you at the NFT NYC, but you was talking to my colleague Christian. But I'm equally happy that we got the chance to do this tonight.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And yeah, we'll definitely talk in the green room as well. In the meantime, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Another awesome episode. I hope you found it valuable. I know I did. With that said, again, check out oneblueland.com and jump into our Discord and the Adult Fantasy Discord. Usually after evening alphas, we're playing games. We do an after party. Love you guys. And with that, I will say, love you. God bless. Take care.